Nintendo is a company that I feel like we all love. You know, they've definitely done a ton of stuff for video games, whether you think it's good or bad, that's really up to your interpretation. But one thing I feel that happens with Nintendo is they often get credit for things that maybe they didn't start. Maybe they weren't the innovator of it. Maybe they weren't the first to the race when it came to something like this. And one of these things is the mascot-based fighting game, because when you think about mascot-based fighting games from a historical perspective, where does your mind automatically go? It goes to Super Smash Bros. On the Nintendo 64, the first mascot-based fighting game featuring Nintendo's iconic characters like Samus and Mario and Link. So this was the first mascot-based fighting game, right? As far as like big IPs are concerned from a first-party company. Wrong. Incorrect, because there was one that predates that game, done by Nintendo's biggest competitor during the early to mid 90s. I, of course, am talking about Sega, and I, of course, am talking about the amazing 1996 release of Sonic the Fighters, Sonic the Hedgehog and Friends, in a 3D arena-based fighting game. Now, many people aren't familiar with this game for really a myriad of reasons, most of them being, well, this game only released in arcades. It actually never got a native home port release as far as like the Sega Saturn or the Dreamcast was concerned. Now, there were rumors that Sega wanted to bring this game to the Sega Saturn, but for whatever reason they didn't. But I mean, thank God they gave us Virtua Fighter Kids, because, you know, we need Virtua Fighter 1 with chibi style characters. But Sonic the Fighters was a game that was regulated to the arcade market until things like the Sonic Gems collection came around on the Nintendo GameCube and actually gave this game a home port so you could check it out for yourself. Because let's be real, arcades are a dying breed. So what is Sonic the Fighters? Who's in the game? Well, you of course have your standard Sonic the Hedgehog based characters, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Metal Sonic. The more things change with Sonic the Hedgehog, really, the more they sort of stay the same, because you never really get outside of that little character realm. Now, obviously, this game is sort of restricted to just Sonic characters because it's not a Sega fighting game. Well, I mean, it is a Sega fighting game, but it's not a Sega mascot fighting game. It's just for Sonic the Hedgehog. So this would be more of the equivalent of something like Mario Fighters, which I honestly think would be really cool, but I feel like they're still sort of within the same realm. Now, the controls of the game are actually pretty pick up and play. It's actually very easy to get into this game, but of course there is more depth to it, as there is a combo system, because every fighting game needs a combo system. One thing I like about this game, though, is the arenas, because there are hazards within the arenas that can cause you to lose your rings. Yes, of course, this is a Sonic the Hedgehog game, so you're dropping rings when you get hit, and like, you gotta get your rings or else you might get knocked out. But I like this game. I think this game is super fun. In a sea of just games, of fighting games during this time frame, 96, you know, let's say the mid 90s, there were so many 3D fighting games that were coming out that just lacked any sort of charm, you know, any sort of direction. Stuff like War Gods and stuff. Like, what are we doing here? Mace, the Dark Ages, Dark Rift. Like, 3D fighters were a dime a dozen, but I feel like Sonic the Fighters was unique in the sense that you had a really good graphical style with this game. You had some interesting gameplay mechanics with it, and you had Sonic the freaking Hedgehog, who, yes, in 2023 might not be as big of a household name as he used to be, but in the mid-90s, Sonic was freaking king, man. Everyone loved Sonic the Hedgehog. I think there's a lot of nostalgia for this game for people as well, based on the characters, based on the environments that you're fighting in, even based on like the color palette, and of course Sonic and his friends as well. Like, it brings you back to a sort of different time of when Sonic the Hedgehog was a more dominant creature. You actually had, you know, Sonic in a different light than you had seen him before. This wasn't your standard platforming game where you run from left to right, or 3D Blast, which also came out in 1996. No, this was a completely different direction for Sonic the Hedgehog. And while Sonic's direction got crazier and crazier over the years with games like Sonic and the Black Knight, Shadow the Hedgehog, yes, obviously those weren't the right move, but I feel like this, in a racing game or something, this was the right move. You know, you had a lot of nods to Sonic the Hedgehog games in there, little Easter eggs that people who were fans of the game and fans of the series could really appreciate within it. And plus, it was a fighting game. Sega made great 3D fighting games. I defy you to find a bad 3D Sega fighting game. I don't think you can do it. You can let me know in the comments what you think were some of the more mediocre titles, but for the most part, your Virtua Fighters, your Fighting Vipers, your Last Bronx, and of course, your Sonic the Fighters were fun experiences. Now, it's not all sunshine and farts with Sonic the Hedgehog because, you know, the roster, while it is good, I think that it's very limited. And I would have liked to have seen cameos from other Sega franchises. I mean, you have all this sort of stuff. Like, look at what Fighters Mega Mix ended up doing on the Sega Saturn. Like, you had Daytona USA, the Hornet car, and you had Fighting Vipers, and you had Virtua Fighter. Like, why could you not infuse some of that into the game and make that, you know, just as hidden characters? You could still have the main focus of the game be on, you know, the Sonic characters in the Sonic franchise, but you could expand it a little bit and make it more, you know, interesting for fans of, you know, Fighting Vipers and Virtua Fighter and stuff like that. And I really feel like the game, although it does have combos and stuff like that, it's very simplistic, which is a good and a bad thing. Like, yes, it can get a little bit more complex, but for the most part, it's a very simplistic fighting game, and that can turn off a lot of people, because one of the main things about fighting games and giving fighting games longevity is the fact that there is a deeper, you know, thing to it. There's juggling, or, you know, there's moves that are harder to block than other moves. There's a whole meta involved in it, and I'm not sure that Sonic the Fighters really has that same sort of meta, but I don't necessarily think that the game really set out to do that. I don't think this game was supposed to be like this crazy in-depth fighter with 700 moves like Virtua Fighter 1 had on the freaking 32X. I think this was meant to be a more accessible thing. I think this was meant to be a more pick up and play thing, because it's Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, let's be real, although the meta for Smash Brothers has evolved over the years and gotten a lot more in-depth, really at its core, Smash Brothers is a very pick up and play game. You can just sit there and mash buttons and do okay. And I feel like that was the same sort of vibe that they were going with Sonic the Fighters, except Sonic the Fighters was first. So the next time your friends talk to you about mascot fighters, you're like, oh man, I love PlayStation All-Stars. Nobody says that, but if somebody were to say, oh, I love PlayStation All-Stars, I love Smash Brothers, they're the best mascot fighting games of all time, challenge them to Sonic the Fighters. Download a Sega Model 2 emulator. I believe it was Model 2. I'm pretty sure it was Model 2. Sega Model 2 emulator. Pick it up on the Sonic Gems collection on the GameCube, or emulate the Sonic Gems collection on the GameCube. That's probably your easiest bet, because you got to mess around with the Model 2 emulator or something. But I enjoyed this game. It's not a game I'll play for like hours on end, but it's a game that I like to pick up from time to time and just play it just because I love the visual style, man. I love the visual style. I love the feeling that this game gives you, and it's a really fun game. You know, don't expect Street Fighter level meta in it or anything, and I think you'll have a good time. So let me know in the comment section down below. Are you familiar with Sonic the Fighters? Because, like I said, even though this game has been re-released, I was also re-released on the Xbox Live. That's another version I forgot about, on the Xbox 360 arcade. So you can actually play it there, and that's the arcade version of, well, I mean, there's only the arcade version, but that's another option for you. And I own it there too, actually. Let me know in the comment section. It's on Steam too, I think. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think of Sonic the Fighters. Go play it. It's fun. It's enjoyable. It's usually like $4 anyways. And as always, guys, thank you for visiting my stash today. Let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts on Sonic the Fighters and why it's the superior mascot fighting game. I can't even say that with a straight face. And as always, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Later.